Hey everyone, this is Christian Heimel, host of Caught Listening. Thanks for listening to the following podcast on Public House Media.
Hello.
Hey man, what's going on?
Hey Jay, what's up, man?
You ready to talk movies?
I'm ready to talk movies. Let's do it.
Nice. Well, hello, Fear and Theriites. Welcome to another very special, spooky Halloween episode of Fear and There. This is Jay calling in from New York City.
And this is your co-Fear and Therian, Zachary, calling you from Beacon, New York.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, as you all know, this is the the best friend's phone call masquerading as a horror movie review podcast. And this is a special episode because I don't know if you noticed, Zach, but the date that this is being published is the 31st of October, which is...
Oh, my God.
It is Halloween.
Rosh Hashanah. Oh, shit, you're right. Yeah, Halloween.
Yeah,
Halloween.
Yeah, right. Rosh Hashanah. So this is going to be a fun episode. We decided to pick a kind of a more really straight down the middle sort of fun horror movie to talk about tonight because... we talked about a lot of heady movies, a lot of intense movies recently, and a lot of movies that take themselves very seriously. And so I thought it would be fun to, I think we both thought it would be fun to do something that a little bit more tongue-in-cheek, a little bit more in that 80s vein. So this episode we are talking about Nightmare on Elm Street, the 1984 supernatural slasher film written and directed by the horror legend Wes Craven. Zach, this actually celebrated its 35th anniversary last year, I learned, which is interesting. I mean, you could do the math, 1984. But it somehow managed to continue to be like one of the most loved, most watched horror franchise films of all time. I think we can talk a little bit about why that canon is so important. But one thing that I somehow missed was this is Johnny Depp's debut film, which I think probably would be known as, you know, if we were true non-imposter horror genre fans, we would probably have already known that. But I think, I mean, you and I aren't really OG horror fans. Like, neither of us claim to have encyclopedic knowledge of the genre. No. And I think that this movie ends up being like a really good example of that, you know, because... So this movie's not particularly scary, but it's also not particularly like it is campy, but it's not like 100% meant to be funny either. It's kind of somewhere in between.
Right.
And I think that's true of a lot of movies from this era, you know, like the Leprechauns and the Chuckies and all these. So,
yeah, sorry, go on.
And maybe that's why it's in our blind spot, because it's like, obviously, you know, we understand its importance in the track record, but, you know, we don't reach for that because you and I like to dig into a movie, but we also like to be really scared. And I don't know that this movie really wants you to do either of those things. And maybe it did at the time, but... I don't know. I just couldn't think of a better movie to watch for Halloween because, you know, all of the things that I just said aside, it is an undeniably like enjoyable time. It is good, plain fun. This movie, so
it's very fun. And I wonder, like, I don't know. This thought just occurred to me. It's probably a pretty pedestrian observation, but like, the corniness of this movie to me was entirely came from the villain itself, came from Freddy. And then I was thinking about the movies that you just listed off, Leprechaun, Chucky, I don't know, Halloween is one also. What's the Jason movies? I don't remember.
You mean Friday the 13th? I don't think
Friday the 13th.
I think Halloween's a little bit more serious.
It's not corny, right? That John Carpenter, it doesn't have that corniness. But their scares come from a villain, like a principal villain. Or Candyman. Candyman's another example. I mean, Tony Todd, that Candyman, he is the villain, the capital V villain. And like some, you know, like newer horror movies don't really have villains. Like whether it's like, you know, sort of big tentpole horror like the Conjuring movies or whatever. There's not like a principal villain, or like, any of the Ari Aster movies. There's no like, I'm the bad guy kind of role.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because the bad guy, you often can't see them and they change forms. Whereas I think you're right. There's this stretch of time, there was an obsession with putting a face and an identity
with bad guys,
to the villain. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, Wes Craven keeps at that with the Scream movies, but literally, but the Mask and anyway. So we'll get to it, but yeah.
So I think later down the road, we'll dig a little further into Wes Craven. Maybe we'll do. I think we should do a Scream episode eventually because that movie's just too good. But yeah, okay. So, but before we hop into the movie, it is Halloween, and so Zach, I wanted to have a quick couple minutes talking to you about Halloween, if you'll
let's do it.
Have me. Zach and I are both, very clearly Americans, very very Western upbringing, I'd say, and so first, like Freddy Krueger is one of the most classic examples of a Halloween costume, I would say. Even without the face makeup, you can do it with just like a fedora and like an ugly striped sweater and like the knives for the fingers, right?
Forks attached to your hands, right, or whatever it is, right?
So I had to ask you. You don't strike me as the type that maybe was super into Halloween growing up, but do you have a favorite costume you ever wore?
Well, so you certainly didn't anticipate my answer to this, but like Halloween was not. I trick-or-treated a few times, but Halloween has been traditionally not the best holiday for Jews. So it's been a great opportunity for pogroms or pogrom-like behavior, for upticks in anti-Semitic incidents,
like bullying and stuff.
And worse. So for my parents, Halloween was not. I would say they were not afraid. I mean, I grew up in the 90s in suburban Miami, in a very diverse neighborhood that did not have a high incidence of anti-Semitic attacks. It was not, you know what I mean? It was not like the Russian countryside in 1890. So, like, it wasn't like they were locking the doors kind of thing. Like, we always had a bowl of candy out for trick-or-treaters. But I don't remember trick-or-treating every year. I definitely did some years. I remember a very early memory. My mom made me a Zorro costume.
Zorro.
Yeah. Well, I liked swords. I was a big sword guy until the incident, and then I never looked at a sword again.
Is this a fake incident for drama?
Yeah, it's fake. It's fake.
Now, because you're going to make me ask you what incident you had. Did you have a plastic fake sword?
No, but my parents did let me buy a fake katana on eBay once when I was a teenager. That was really cool of them.
Were they parents who otherwise were like no weapons, even if they're toys? Because I don't like the message it sends.
No, they were. My mom was very much like a no weapons person, but then would buy me the fake weapons anyway, and then would like lecture me and make me feel guilty about wanting them. Yeah, it was a little bit. It was a little bit of
incredible.
Both. Kinda. Yeah, it's incredible. Anyway,
well, so my next question is sort of related. Like, I have no because I grew up in southern.
But I want to hear about you. I mean, I want to hear about southern New Hampshire Halloween. I want to hear what your costumes are.
Yeah, I mean, southern New Hampshire is it's not middle America. It's not the South. I grew up in a pretty accepting liberal neighborhood, but it was predominantly white. It was predominantly idyllic for the most part, kind of milquetoast, as it were. Not to put anything against it. I had a lot of fun in the neighborhood.
Sure.
But, we had plenty of, lots of trick-or-treating. They used to do Halloween parties. My neighborhood would call these neighborhood gatherings the Six-Pack Open, which is fun. And didn't realize what that meant until much later in life. But they would do like hay rides on the tractors and stuff. So it was always a big thing. I love Halloween. My older brother and I would decorate the front yard to look like a cemetery every year and put spooky things. And
I love it.
We would paint our own gravestones and stuff.
God, I love it. That's great.
It was always a fun time. But I wanted to know did you get shades of that is that what it was like in Florida? Now, like your participation notwithstanding, like I'm
sure.
Curious if that was the kind of vibe that you got.
Definitely not to that like idyllic extent and remind me of the name of your town.
Merrimack, New Hampshire.
Merrimack, of course, Merrimack. How could I forget? Definitely not to that kind of like idyllic, like it sounds like it reminds me of like mid-century ethos. There's a lot of like it feels like camaraderie. Like the whole idea of townness as an identity feels very like mid-century American history. Like the war is over and we're all fucking friends now. That kind of thing. No, definitely decorations were big though. Over the years, I've had friends and girlfriends or whatever comment, like they'll come down and visit, with my family in Miami, and they'll comment, especially at the end of the year, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas time, whatever, and be like, it's weird to see all these decorations and also palm trees and also be outside in shorts and a t-shirt on October 31st. So that was odd for a lot of people, but and there were definitely, I remember, Miami, the suburbs of Miami was like lazy decoration. It was like, here are the inflatable pumpkins and the inflatable the inflatable zombie and skeleton. Like, not like nobody was designing fake, gravestones, which sounds to me, obviously I love horror now. And like, something I want to do before I die, if COVID ever lets us, is like I would love to go to the Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios, which is a park I've been to a million times in my life because we lived not so far away. But like I would love to do something like that.
They're very scary because they use Hollywood caliber makeup and you actually are on the sets of some of these horror movies. So
and people like there are actors whose job it is to scare the shit out of you, and that sounds like fun to me.
No. Well, it's interesting because I think it's two things. It's like we keep talking about the cultural difference. But you hit on something a little bit with the t-shirts and the shorts. There is a literal weather difference. Like I identify very strongly with autumn. I'm a redhead, so like for me, it was always enjoyable, even outside of Halloween. Doing like what other people would consider basic activities now. I think going to get pumpkins and apple picking and shit like that.
Right.
So it's just an extension of that, I think, because Halloween's. You get the candy and you carve the pumpkins. So I was just curious because I think it's an interesting time of year, and I think this year is going to be by far the most interesting Halloween we've ever experienced.
Oh boy, we've got a real life. This is a real life horror movie horror story that we're all living in right now. It's just
sure.
Yeah. I bet you there's going to be, to the extent that there are parties, and there shouldn't be, but I bet you there's going to be a lot of like COVID molecule costumes, which is going to be very tasteless.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be, there's definitely going to be some Trump costumes for sure.
Ugh, right.
Yeah. Well, this was nice. I think I'll close out our Halloween themed section. I prepared a lightning round of questions for you.
Oh, sure. Oh my goodness.
And so
this is fun. Wow, Jay, this is like initiative on your part.
Yeah, again,
You were bored today.
I said I wanted. Yes, I was bored today. No, I wanted to have a fun episode for Halloween because I think I like Halloween a lot, and this is like one of the only ways we're going to get to do anything on Halloween this year.
That's true. That's true.
So
I know. Ordinarily, I feel like the two of us would get together and definitely do like a small marathon or some shit like that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. We would go see a movie in the theaters for sure. Which
without a doubt.
I desperately miss movie theaters. I don't want to go off on that tangent, but
no, I can't handle it. I'll start crying. It's so real. It's so real.
Cool. Okay, so these are just a few questions. I just want you to answer as quickly as you can. Try not to think too hard, and we'll close it out with this. Okay. All right. So Zach, best Halloween candy.
Candy corn.
Oh, you're a candy corn lover. That's incredible. Great. Okay. Second question. Do you believe in ghosts?
No.
Emphatically no. Really?
Yeah. With that, there's no hesitation for me. Yeah.
Wow. All right. We're gonna have to.
Well, until I'm proven wrong, I don't believe in them.
Well, we'll have to dig into that on a future ghost movie. maybe the Turn of the Screw Bly Manor.
Nice.
Show.
Oh gosh. All right. Very good.
But anyway, okay. Next question. What is? Well, maybe you don't celebrate Halloween, but what do you think is the best Halloween prank?
I mean, this is okay. I'm trying not to think about my answers. I'm just trying to speak them quickly. I think there's a real serious like bludgeon like poetry to just scaring somebody, like just jumping out of the bushes and screaming at them and watching their face curdle into horror. That's enjoyable to me.
No need to vandalize with toilet paper and eggs. And
no, I mean, listen, I can think of a lot of houses where I would see very certain, lawn signs that I would enjoy vandalizing, but that wouldn't feel like a Halloween prank. That would feel like doing my civic duty kind of.
Yeah, right, and that's different. Save that for November 6th.
Exactly.
November 6th? No, November
the 3rd.
The 3rd. Wow. Woo-hoo. Guys, don't take voting advice from me. Look it up on the internet and then go vote. Okay, 2 more questions. This one, kind of funny. We already talked about this a little. Who do you think is the scariest horror movie villain of all time?
Oh, God.
Again, knee-jerk reaction. You can change your mind later, but who do you think is the scariest?
Oh my god. I'm totally drawing a blank right now. I will say this is not my answer. Like you said, I can change my mind later. But apropos of Wes Craven, apropos of what we were saying earlier, some of my most pronounced early life trauma comes from seeing a commercial for Scream and seeing The Mask. That really traumatized me as a kid. Just the commercial. I didn't see the movie until I was in my like mid-20s already for the first time. So now that I have seen those movies as an adult, I realize that they're not scary and that they're really funny and really clever. But when I was a kid, nothing scared me more than that mask, and so that's my answer.
Got it. I think that's a good answer. I mean, I think that movie, it's not, the villain is not, it is the mask, it's not the person,
right.
Like the first
it's not
one,
the person.
So it's interesting. For the record, I think my scariest villain.
No, wait, don't say it. I'm actually writing all of these down. I'm going to ask you all the same questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The last one is, I got a gun to your head. You got to tell me your favorite horror movie. What is it? And you have 5 seconds to answer.
Oh my god. Okay, I don't know. The Vanishing? Probably not. That's not my answer, but that's what I just said. So that's what.
The Vanishing. I don't even think I've fucking seen that movie.
Sporloose in its original language. I like saying that. But that's not. That's definitely not my answer. But it's the first thing that popped into my head.
No, that's the point of the lightning round. I mean, wait, The Vanishing, 1988.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Sporloose.
Sporloose. Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe Alien. Maybe The Sounds of the Lambs. Oh my god, it's so hard.
Or The Shining, or something.
It's so hard. It's too hard. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I think those are 4 good, like, shot in the dark answers. Good work.
All right, Jane. Favorite Halloween candy?
Candy corn for sure. Yeah, we're on the same page with that.
Wow.
I actually prefer the little candy corn pumpkins.
Ooh, those are nice too.
Yeah, but
that's romantic. Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes, I think I believe in. More specifically, I believe in our ability for our brains to make us think we are seeing ghosts, and I think that's all ghosts are. In my opinion, I think it's energy.
So the answer is no.
I mean, I guess I don't believe that ghosts are sentient beings.
Yes, got it.
I think that unexplained phenomena happens because there are some things about our energy that we don't understand.
So like if I die before you, the only way that I would be able to haunt you is if you thought that I was going to haunt you.
And I was walking down a dark hallway that you frequented or something.
That's right. Okay. Yep. All right, very good. I like that answer. What's your favorite prank? Halloween prank?
Yeah, I think it's the scare. I think it is the haunted house style scare for sure. Setting up a haunted house, like a run. You know, especially for unsuspecting trick-or-treaters who are like, you want this candy, you got to earn that shit.
You have to shit yourself to get this candy.
Yeah.
And finally, not finally. Scariest horror villain.
Okay, so I think the scariest horror villain, I agree with you. The Conjuring doesn't particularly have a villain, but it does have a villain. And I think her name is Bathsheba. She is the witch demon that is causing everything in the house. Spoiler alert to everyone. She is very scary, and when you see her on top of the armoire in that one scene, I find it genuinely terrifying. So,
well, that's a good answer. Oh, that's a good answer. Okay, good.
I also really like Toby from the Paranormal Activity series, and I also really find Jason from Friday the 13th to be scary because he's just sort of like Jason's kind of the original version of the It Follows demon. Just slow walk, determined, can't get away, no matter how much you can outrun him. You know.
Still haven't seen that movie. I mean, this episode. I'd never seen Nightmare on Elm Street. Haven't seen Friday the 13th, but we can talk.
Yeah, I think that we can save those for future episodes. I think people will enjoy listening to those.
And finally, favorite horror movie.
Yeah, that's really fucking hard.
It sucks to be asked that question.
Yeah. I think I think I like. I mean, I do really like Silence of the Lambs a lot, but I think it's going to have to be more modern for me. I think the one that I find really most fun to watch is Insidious. So I'm gonna go with my gut and say Insidious because I like to rewatch it.
Oh, that makes me want to rewatch it. I've only seen it the one time. Very good, cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's fun. Well, thus concludes our Halloween theme section. I hope everyone enjoyed 20 minutes of their time.
That was fun.
So yeah, let's get into Elm Street. We already talked about our context a little, so I don't think we need to dig down that road. I think just I don't know, it's hard to recommend or disrecommend, or is that a word? To
disrecommend?
Unrecommend? To divert people from? Would you recommend this film, Zach?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a quote unquote classic, which is kind of a dreadful word, but it was a lot of fun. If you want to watch, for me, it scratched a lot of itches, very specific itches. But I frequently have an itch to watch movies set in the 80s or that were filmed in the 80s, and that really are prime representatives of the 80s aesthetic, and this movie has that in spades with the score, the fashion, the way it's shot, all of it. So that it scratched that itch. It scratched the hapless teenage moron itch, which is an itch that all horror movie fans get from time to time. You know, it had some really, really clever practical effects. You know, so it scratched all those itches. It was a lot of fun. It was definitely not, as you said, a particularly scary film. And I have some thoughts about Freddy as a villain that I'd love to get into with you. I'm sure you've got some questions planned around
totally.
that.
Yeah.
But I definitely recommend this movie. I mean, look, it took me 8 years of being a real serious horror movie fan to finally get to watching it. But I recommend it. Sure, of course. How about you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think everything you said is correct. It's part of it, you know? If you're a fan of scary movies, you don't have to think it's good to recognize its role, I guess, you know? It's almost a character in scary movie canon. in the same way that Freddy Krueger is a character in this movie.
Right.
It's just sort of like an ugly, unabashed character in the story of scary movies. So so great. So I think now's a good time. Let's put up that spoiler wall. If you have not seen this almost 20, this 35-year-old movie, please go back and watch it before coming back and listening to this part. So the spoiler wall is going up right now. Hello. Welcome to the spoiler side of the podcast. So Zach, you mentioned you want to talk about Freddy and you really like the 80s. My first question is, how about that Freddy theme that 80s music that comes on and when Freddy pops his head out of a wall. I loved it, and I also kind of hated it because I think that it's the sole reason that this movie was not. It wasn't suspenseful almost at all because. Oh,
interesting. Yes. I hear you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is a quick one. I just am curious because, like, you mentioned the score. The score's fun, but like, what do you think the goal was? Like, what service was it trying to provide in the movie?
So that's the best possible. I feel like that's the best possible way you could have asked that question because it's a question that I have never heard asked in relation to a score. Nobody has ever asked me, what do you think the goal was to a movie score?
It's true.
Which is killing me right now. And I actually pulled up, I just pulled up the films with music composed by this composer. His name is Charles Bernstein. And this is far and away, like by leaps and bounds, the most successful movie this guy ever scored. And it is so obvious why. It's a preposterous movie. It sounded like somebody doing a like acid trip version, like acid trip 80s movie score. Like that they were aware that like the Charles Bernstein was aware that he was scoring a film set in the mid 80s, but he was scoring it from the vantage point of like 2030. And so he was totally wrong about what it was supposed to sound like. And he just went, I don't know. And he took too much acid, or it was bad acid, and I don't know. But I enjoyed it because it was so silly. But it's interesting to hear you say, like, it didn't occur to me at any point that it was actually getting in the way of the movie.
But I think it wormed its way into.
No, I think you're right.
We talk about pacing a lot, and I don't think that this film. Nobody would make a case that this film is intentionally paced in the same way that almost any other movie is.
Right.
But it does ruin whatever pacing it could have. You know, there are moments where, you know, Freddy's going to jump out of somewhere, or he doesn't abide by the laws of physics. So, much like the score doesn't abide by the laws of physics.
With the laws of music, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know that it's not. It's a bad score in the sense that it doesn't help the movie. But it doesn't help. Let me rephrase. It doesn't help the movie if the movie is trying to be serious. And
that's right.
I think that's okay. So sorry. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about the score before I jumped into the next point?
No, I mean, other than just that song, the song that is randomly chanted by kids.
Oh, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Yeah,
that Double Dutch song or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Other than that, which was like
almost didn't even like. Why was it there?
Why was it there? Why did anyone know that? Whose song was this? If this is a thing that nobody like, there's a very select few teenagers who are getting visited by Freddy. Everybody else is. Like the whole mythology of him was very poorly explained, and it's not until 3/4 of the way through the film that we get that like bizarre admission in the boiler room, in the basement. From
super weird. She pulls out his knife hands.
Yeah, like, what the fuck? Like, why does she have that? That's so random.
I think we're meant to believe that Freddy has been haunting this town for some time, and that's why the little kids are singing it, because they've been haunted in their dreams or whatever.
But so one thought I had, and it was after the mother, the like very unbelievable alcoholic mother, like that woman did not study alcoholism. Like that actress was not like, she was like, no, I'm going to do what I think an alcoholic would do. And it was nothing like an alcoholic. But anyway, like after that scene, and then in conjunction with the random people singing that theme song, I actually had to look at, like, I rented this from Google Play to watch, and I had to look to make sure that I hadn't accidentally rented the sequel. And then it occurred to me that this movie was a sequel. There's no first movie in this series. The first movie that takes place in the earlier generation that explains like his origin story. Like this was a sequel. This movie was a sequel in most ways.
Well, they fill out the mythology a little more. That's sort of why when we were originally talking about what we were going to watch, the third movie is people like that movie a little bit more. I think it's called Dream Warriors or whatever.
Sure.
But they talk a little bit more about who he was as a person before he was killed and all that. But you're right. There needs to be a middle explanation, not an origin story. There needs to be like a first adventure,
Yes.
And this feels like we were expected to believe that, they lived in a world where they were heeding this concern. But, it's interesting, but, well, so this is a good segue to my next question, which is, I think I actually had seen this film years ago. I knew I'd seen parts of it, but I think I had seen this film on TV or something. It's a classic made for TV around, not made for TV, but like rerun on TV around October. And I do remember this movie scaring me a lot because the only reason that I can construe that this movie is scary is in relation to our sleep scale. Because the whole concept is don't go to sleep.
Conceptually scary. It's yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Did you pull any fear? I mean, are we too old? Are we too past that to pull fear out of that? Like, is that something that is a little scary to you?
Oh my God. Yes, it is. But conceptually scary is different from viscerally scary. I had a huge amount of fun, so to speak, thinking about the brilliance of the concept. I mean, if you cannot feel safe while you have at least fallen asleep, then there's nowhere, of course, metaphysically or physically, there's nowhere that you can ever be safe. And like that tapped into, like, as a kid, I'm still not a great sleeper, but I was a dreadful sleeper when I was a kid, and I was racked with terror. And I often was like begging my parents to let me sleep on the floor of their bedroom with them. And I was tormented by nightmares and tormented by images and that sort of thing. And the idea that like for me, when I was a kid, like if I could just fall asleep, I mean, it took me forever to fall asleep, but if I could just fall asleep, I would be fine. And so the concept behind this is truly terrifying. I think I've been implying this for a while in this episode so far, but like Freddy is ridiculous. He's so ridiculous. He says the stupidest shit. He looks so dumb. He has such a dumb smile. He's not scary.
He's made up of green worms, apparently.
Yeah, right. He's just a moron. He just seems like he's awful at violence. He can't he just jumps at people and then gets he's a terrible villain.
Well, okay, so you're circling around my main. This is the meat of the discussion, right? Okay. Because when you talk about and I don't mean to I'll let you keep talking about how much you hate Freddy
by all means.
But I think so. The reason that this movie is so interesting, so when you think of Nightmare on Elm Street, you think of Freddy Krueger. Like, that is what you think of. And it seems like by design that you're supposed to think. The character design is so specific and so iconic that you can't take him away. Like, he is the villain of this movie, and it becomes tangible in a movie that, frankly, didn't need a tangible. So, so what's interesting is, to me, this is you mentioned it a little before, but this is one of the OG high concept movies, in my opinion. Yeah, it's a little bit. It's sort of a ghost movie. It's sort of a demon movie. Like, Freddy's obviously a demonic presence. Like, right. But it's also largely a slasher. So it's all these things, but it's also none of these things, because really what it is it's not about Freddy to me. It is about just what you said. If it's not safe to sleep, but it's safe every other time, it is the opposite of all horror movies.
Right. That's right.
And it totally disarms you as a horror viewer, because for me, it's the worst part about trying to sleep after watching a horror movie is not being able to get to sleep.
Exactly. Well, once you're asleep, it's who cares?
Yeah, this movie, these kids are literally taking stay awake pills because it's they don't want to sleep. But I can't tell you what I want to do more than sleep when I'm trying to not think of Bathsheba on the top of that wardrobe.
That's right.
And so I don't know. You're right. Do you think in the pitch meeting or something when they were originally talking about this? I didn't do a whole lot of reading of interviews and lore and stuff, but Was this movie a Freddy Krueger movie, or was this a dreams can kill you movie? Like, which of those concepts came first, do you think?
Oh, I think the concept came first rather than the villain. I mean, it's tough to speculate about this sort of thing, and I don't know. I mean, exactly. I also didn't do a lot of reading about this film either. I don't know what the landscape of horror movie making was like in 1984, but I mean, there were definitely some high concept horror movies at this point, but like, I'd like to think that this movie came about in a kind of like Maverick sort of way. Like, this was a very bizarre ultra idea that Craven had, and he got a green light for it without too much hassle. But I would imagine that the concept came first. I just don't like. I agree with you that Freddy is a very specific. He's a very highly realized villain. By the same token, like, when I watch horror movies now, and I don't mean contemporary, it's okay. So, like, Freddy feels all powerful in a way that doesn't make a lot of sense under scrutiny. Like, if he is the demonic spirit of some child murderer from, a couple of decades in the past, come back to haunt the kids of this town, then how is it that he has the power to infiltrate dreams? Like, usually a horror movie will make some attempt at explaining why they wound up being ghosts, demons, why they wound up with the ability to haunt the living. What's their MO? It's like, but Freddy just has this random power given to him, which feels lazy to me. It doesn't feel like a totally drawn out character. I mean, yeah, he's got a pretty good costume, but like, his whole personality is like going, ha, it's time for death. He's like, he doesn't have like he might as well have catchphrases. He's not like Tony Todd in The Candyman is wonderful. Like, he has like a rich sort of philosophy behind him. He is motivated by a specific grievance. He talks like he's got this like Lord Byron kind of shit going on. He's very like, he's a real poet, but like Freddy's just like here's my weird nasally voice. I'm going to launch myself at you and fail to kill you. So I don't know. I feel like he seems on one hand quite realized, but on the other hand, he feels kind of slapdash to me. So my feeling is, to answer your question in a roundabout way, my feeling is that the concept came first. I think the concept is very, very strong. I think it's brilliant, in fact. What if you couldn't go to sleep? What if every time you went to sleep, you were haunted by something that actually could kill you in real life, like it was the Matrix, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, I totally agree. And I wonder if it was always the plan to have this concept personified specifically, because, they didn't know if audiences would grasp on to a disembodied power.
Sure.
But perhaps that was it. Perhaps it was some infuriating, production note from one of the studio reps or something. I don't know. And I think you're right. There are a couple of points I would make. They do fill out. I haven't seen all of the movies in this franchise, but they do fill out some of why he had those powers later. I'm sure not to your satisfaction, but it doesn't excuse this movie. You're right. I mean, it's like any of that would be retconning a little bit. Like
exactly,
you need to give something to the viewer. I don't think Freddy is necessarily inept at killing. I think he intentionally toys with people.
Sure, you're right. I don't want to insult the man. You're right. He when he kills Johnny Depp, he really fucking kills Johnny Depp. So it's not like he's
immediately, and he doesn't worry about it. Yeah,
that's true. That's a good point.
So because here's the thing, because there's the third layer of I don't know, logic in this movie, like the physics of Freddy Krueger. There's this third layer there that's like he doesn't have power unless they're scared of him and pay attention to him. So it's kind of like I don't know. Like my guess, he toys with them probably because maybe when they first start to see him, it's just like a normal nightmare conversation, because like when you first start just having a scary dream, you don't dream the scariest thing ever. You dream something and then your brain realizes it, and then maybe 3 nights later you dream a worse version of it. So it's it's like he's building the fear in his victims until he's strong enough to like kill them effectively. I don't know. I'm filling in some gaps here. But that's my impression. That's my thought.
Well, I will say, like, one thing that I really liked about the dreams were that they relied on some, like, I actually really wish that there had been more of it, but what little was there I really did like. They relied on some very classic nightmare tropes. I mean, we all, to a certain extent have the same dreams. Like we just do, we process things in the same way. I think Carl Jung wrote a lot about this, like the collective unconscious, but also like we all have, to some extent, some flavor or whatever, the dream where we're back in high school or middle school or whatever it is and can't find our class, or just found out that we're going to fail a class. We all have our like weird, sexual frustration dreams, or we have our weird, I don't know what it is. Somebody's mad at you dreams, whatever it is. So like, I really enjoyed seeing the like, our protagonist, I can't remember her name, but she like couldn't get up the stairs during one of the dreams, and her feet kept on sinking. Nancy, everybody's named Nancy, of course. Her feet kept on sinking in the staircase. Tropes like that. Those are very tried and true, sort of universal dreams. So, you always feel, you feel like you're trying to run in a dream, but it feels like quicksand, or it feels like you're in a swimming pool, or whatever it is. I did really like that. I guess
I thought the special effects in that particular scene were really good too. She was stepping into like marshmallow fluff or something. I
know, totally. I mean, I also did want to just give a shout out to the practical effects in this film, just generally speaking. There were some excellent ones. I absolutely loved the way that Johnny Depp died in that crazy tornado of blood. I loved the way that the first teenager who dies, the way she's kind of flung up onto the ceiling, I thought was awesome. And possibly my favorite of all, I really, really loved. I think again, it's Nancy. Is it Nancy who when she's sleeping over at the friend's house, Freddy's face presses through the wall?
That is Nancy. Yeah.
Okay, that was awesome. That was just so cool. But like you did make a reference to the end of the movie, essentially, when there's that little, where Nancy says, your power only comes because I give you power, but now I'm taking it away. You're shit. First of all, just bad. And second of all, it's all completely then reversed by that bullshit ending. What? That ending is preposterous. Can we talk about that?
Well, so... Yeah, I don't really fully understand what they're trying to get at. I mean, I think the point is that, Freddy always had the upper hand. Like, and that maybe explains his sort of, what can only be explained as like, is like a Three Stooges scene at the end.
Totally, yes.
Well, I do like the concept of like Home Alone style booby traps. There's something nice about...
Oh, I was fine with that. I really mean the twist ending at the end when it turns out that it's a dream again, all of a sudden.
So that's what I'm saying. I think what you're saying is like Freddy Krueger, if he's this like supernatural master villain, which is really what he is, like the powers that he has are insane.
They're crazy.
So he should never lose. He should never get pulled out of a dream and then get hit in the head with a sledgehammer and then get blown up by a light bulb and then like eventually get lit on fire and die. Like that shouldn't happen because he's a supernatural being. So like the fact that you pulled out, you're like, oh, he's sort of inept and he's sort of like fumbling around trying to kill people.
Sure.
My guess is like this is we were probably meant to believe that he always knew that she was like Inception style. She was like 2 layers down in a dream or something. And he always had the upper hand. So I don't know, like the girls come back at the end, so I think maybe we're led to believe that maybe the girls were always ghosts or something, like his original victims because he was a child murderer.
Right.
So which his motives for that are always ambiguous. So
totally.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of half-formed ideas. I don't think the ending is good, but I think the ending is right out of the horror movie playbook. Like, it is how Carrie ends. It is how...
Yes.
It's that last jump.
It's the Deus Ex Machina, which is a favorite of all screenwriters since the beginning of the screen.
Yeah.
And writing, actually. Just the beginning of writing. It's just like, oh, fuck, I don't know, so it was all a dream. It was all... Yeah. Just, I don't care.
Or it was reversed in some fashion, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think the ending is meant to be analyzed. And frankly, this film isn't meant to be analyzed.
It's not meant to be analyzed.
And that's sort of the conversation topic I wanted to end on. Obviously, you're welcome to veer it in all of your usual directions. But yeah, I don't like. Are we supposed to like? Wes Craven made Scream, and that movie is both terrifying on a serious level, but also reflexive and meta and really, really clearly a satire on his own films. So, and really all horror movies, but
sure, right.
I don't know, like, I don't get the sense that it was 100% that, but this was not his first horror film. I mean, I think he did Last House on the Left, and I think he did, there was one other film that he did before this. And those are
the Hills Have Eyes,
the original Hills Have Eyes, yes. That's and those are genuinely scary movies, and those are serious movies, you know. Nightmare on Elm Street is definitely meant to be tongue-in-cheek, especially but like in almost a maniacal way.
Well, right. You can't read Freddy's performance as anything other than camp. I don't think you can.
Right. So
intentional.
So I don't know. Like, how do you feel about it not being 100% campy, but not being 100% scary either? Like, did that work for you?
Well, yeah. So, like, this is the rare movie for a guy like me to be able to say, you know, it wasn't a good movie, but I had a lot of fun watching it, and that's true. But like, that requires a kind of compartmentalizing or like cognitive dissonance for me. You know, for me personally. I mean, this is my, you know, this is like it's the sort of blessing. And no, it's mostly just the curse of being like a whatever. It doesn't matter. So like I really liked this movie unironically, but I also really liked it ironically. I don't think that it's a successful movie. I don't think it's a good movie. I don't think there's much in it that you could call acting or writing, but it's okay. If this movie came out today and it was like adjusted for inflation of quality, I wouldn't know that this was a good movie at any point until maybe it became a cult classic in 10 years. So like,
interesting, yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense, if that's even a possible
I don't know what movie serves that purpose today other than like sequels. Right. Like
yeah.
It's interesting because like the concept I'm getting at here is like, if a movie is campy on the surface, like a movie that comes to mind, like horror B movies are all about this. Like
sure.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a great example of this. There's a series of movies called Ginger Dead Man, and it's
a great title.
It's a possessed gingerbread man cookie running around, and he has a filthy mouth and he kills people. These movies are like, you're in on the joke with the team that made them. Do you know what I mean? Like, the team that made them is like, here you go. And then on the other side of the spectrum is The Conjuring, or I mean, I've heard people talk about Hereditary as being not that scary and just kind of whatever.
Well, there's definitely a campiness to Hereditary near the end, for sure.
Yeah, and so there are people that, like, I found that movie genuinely 100% serious and 100% scary. And there are people who, you know, find that movie kind of laughable at times and not scary. And so the director is not giving you, in my opinion, they're not giving you hey, this is a joke we're all in on. They're trying to portray a serious thing. This movie seems to be in the middle of those two. It seems like there are moments where he genuinely wants to be like, hey, imagine if you tried to go to sleep and you would be killed if you went to sleep.
Right.
Like, that's fucking scary. That's not a joke. And when you're right, when she's writhing around on the ceiling, there's something really scary about her movements in that scene. So there are genuinely scary moments in this movie, but there are also moments where he's like, hey, I'm going to make Freddy Krueger chop off his fingers and cackle. And you know that Craven is like winking at you, and you know that it's intentional. So like,
I think it's a shame. I do. I think it's a shame. I would like to have been scared by this movie. It would have been nice. I think that it's too much of a tonal contradiction. And I think, but I really do agree with you. I think that Craven he was too smart. He knew exactly what he was doing. You know, so I just think it was the wrong move. I just don't think it was like the Scream movies were so perfect for him. That's why they're his masterpiece for sure. At least the first one is easily his masterpiece, right? So because it struck that it leaned into the campiness. It was intelligent. It was conceptually daring. It was heady. It was funny, but above all, it was actually freaky. It was actually scary. So yeah. But this is like I think this is a pretty good example of an early film in a director in a successful director's filmography where they are starting to play with some ideas and not entirely nailing it, but clearly on the way to nailing it.
but somehow finding their way into horror movie canon. At the same time.
Well, right. I mean, to be somebody who's that conceptually daring and innovative at a time when you weren't getting a lot of that stuff, I mean, that's impressive. People took notice of that.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think it is the vexing part of this movie because you and I both agree this almost would have been scarier if they treated it in a subtle way. Maybe even if they wanted Freddy to be the embodiment, like wait till the third act to reveal his face. You know, like why
exactly?
Why are we seeing him so clearly and so early? And I think you're right. It was intentional. I think he was like, I'm going to put this all on the table because dreams are kind of campy. And dreams are kind of, you know, so he was clearly, that's, if we're going to pull meaning, that's the meaning. But I think either way, super fun movie. Definitely a great movie to, you know, throw on for Halloween, or to throw on, you know, next time you have a gathering of people when that's allowed.
Yeah, right.
And, I mean, I think that is a good discussion arrival. You ready to rate this thing, Zach?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I think the scary scale is going to be harder than usual for this. So this first scale is our sheep scale, where we rate every movie we watch from 0 to 5 sheep, as in how many sheep it took you to fall asleep. Zach takes great issue with the metrics of this scale.
It's just very complicated. It's a very complicated thing.
Yeah. I think the whole point is, you know, 0 sheep, not scary at all. 5 sheep, very scary. Took you a long time to fall asleep. So Zach, where do you land on this? Because I think it's more complicated than you would think.
I agree with that. I do think it's complex. I'll give it 2. I'll give it 2 sheep, which is definitely a lot higher than a lot of the movies that we do. Because you know, as we've talked about it, I think quite a lot already in the episode. It is a very conceptually scary movie, but it's not. I think I said this earlier. It's not viscerally scary. So I didn't like. It's not that I had trouble falling asleep after I watched it, but I was thinking about it. You know, I was really thinking about it. It was enticing. It was freaky. It was sort of scintillating or titillating, whatever. So yeah, I arrive at 2. How about you?
I think I'm about 2.5. I'm right in the middle because, I think it really gets me, the whole sleep thing. Like, coincidentally, I don't think it had any relation to this movie, but I woke up at 5:30 this morning and didn't get back to sleep. So, I don't know. I think maybe wormed its way in, but...
Sure, yeah.
For me... You're right. It's conceptually scary. There are a couple of scary visuals. Like I said, the woman writhing around on the ceiling is pretty scary.
It's good, yeah.
And I think her dead body showing up in the body bag, standing in the hallway.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Scary. Yep. So there are some moments where you can say, "Oh yeah, Wes Craven does know what he's doing, and he is intentionally making Freddy Krueger over the top." So
right.
So yeah, I'm going to give it 2.5, just for that reason. And then our final rating here is just a rating of quality. It is 0 to 5 stars, pentagrams. Maybe in this case, Freddy Krueger
fedoras?
No,
fedoras. Perfect.
I think the hat's funnier.
It's a lot funnier.
So Zach, how many fedoras do you give? And this is hard because it's a classic. It's hard to. This is the frustration I present a lot with these older films, and not older, but these like films that exist in the 70s and 80s that people talk about as the formative years of modern horror films. These sort of experimental, like, you know, because you had Halloween, you had Carrie, you had The Exorcist, you had Pet Sematary. So like all these movies that were out around this time, any other movie that ends up in the conversation, you have to give it more stars because it blazed the trail and whatever. So I'm going to ask you to try to rate this film just on your experience of watching it, not on its history, not on any of that. Like, try to decode. Did you enjoy watching this movie?
Yeah, definitely. It's a valiant cause or a valiant challenge to try to rate it that way. I had an immediate rating for it when I finished it. It felt right to me. I slept on it. It still felt right to me. It's a 3-star movie to me. I mean, in a vacuum, right? If I'm not rating this movie as like a film historian, then it's just in terms of like my enjoyment factor, or not my enjoyment factor so much as like, because there are plenty of amazing movies that I don't enjoy even in the slightest. Enjoyment is definitely one of many reactions you can have to a film, but like. I thought it was a 3-star movie. I thought that there were some things that were effective. I particularly loved the practical effects. I thought it was a pretty well-directed movie, all things considered. But it's not a particularly great one. And I don't know. I felt, it's a 3-star movie to me. How about you?
I think we're in agreement here.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I was going to give it 2.5, but that just feels... The movie seemed too aware of what it was doing, but it didn't go full camp. You know, there's something to be said for it keeping you on your toes, seeing a really campy Freddy scene and then seeing something that's like seeing his power in a really horrifying way.
Yeah, right.
Juxtaposed with like a silly, I mean, you have a Freddy voice you used earlier that was pretty on point.
I will kill you.
Yeah. And having that and then turning around and seeing something genuinely scary, there's something off-putting about that and something effective as a director for making that choice. So I think it edged up to a 3 for me for that reason. But
wow, yeah, and rare agreement.
It's just super fun. I mean, it's a fun movie.
It is a fun movie.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end.
There you have it.
Zach, do you have any more parting words, perhaps said in a Freddy voice?
Happy Halloween!
Nice. Beautiful. Well, folks, thank you for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. That really helps us out and helps us get onto other listeners' radars. You can also follow us on social media, all the Instagrams and Facebooks of the world. Our handle is just Fear and There. That's AND, not ampersand. And you can check us out at fearandthere.com or email us at fearandthere@gmail.com. And I think that's about it. You can buy merch if you head over to our website. We've got a lot of...
We have a throw pillow.
Yeah, the throw pillow.
We should plug that every episode. I would love... Somebody needs to buy the throw pillow.
If you buy the throw pillow and you put it on your couch and you're a regular listener of this podcast, please, send us a picture, tweet us a picture, or email us a picture. It would warm our hearts to see that out in the wild. But yeah, the big thanks to our podcast group, Public House Media, for setting up that store for us and helping us out with everything. So I think that's it. If you like us, be sure to support us on all the channels.
And Jay, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for.
And thank you, Jay.
Thank you for spending your pseudo Halloween. We're pretending it's Halloween. We're recording this a little early, but thank you for spending your Halloween with me, Zach.
It was a pleasure, and thank you for spending your Halloween with me.
All right, everyone. Until next time, I'm Jay. And
I'm Zachary. Be safe out there.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your Hallows Eve.